Welcome, everybody. It is Wednesday. Wow. Yeah, it's weeks flying by because obviously a lot of insanity is happening here in the United States, all over the world, mostly because of the United States. But yeah, it's difficult kind of getting back in the swing of things after the holidays, and now I'm losing track of the days. I did a pretty good job of keeping track of them during the holidays. I know everybody thinks, I don't even know what day it is. But no, now that everything's back to normal, I'm struggling a bit here. But a lot of crazy stuff to talk about today. Obviously, Donald Trump had his speech, if you want to call it that, yesterday in front of the Republican retreat, because nothing says we're back to work like literally going on vacation the day after you get back to work. So that's super helpful. Also, we have Megyn Kelly, who definitely seems like there is something very wrong with her, and a lot of other really weird stuff to talk about, including the DOJ having to admit in court that they effectively lied in their accusations against Nicolas Maduro in a prosecution that at this point, I'm firmly convinced is going to be thrown out of court. That is how sloppy and stupid this administration is. Like, just the level of incompetence is genuinely mind-blowing. But let's get things started today with Donald Trump's speech. Donald Trump spoke to the Republican retreat yesterday, where he openly suggested, cameras rolling, all of that stuff, that we should in fact cancel this year's elections. And he offered a very specific reason as to why they should be canceled. But then he immediately said, like, I don't want to cancel them. I'm not going to do it. The Democrats should be the one to cancel the elections. Here's what Trump said. How we have to even run against these people. Okay, it takes a moment here because this man doesn't speak grammatically correct. So how we have to even run against these people, I won't say cancel the election. They should cancel the election because the fake news would say he wants the election. They always call me a dictator. So he wants the elections canceled, but he also knows he can't be the guy to say we should cancel elections. So they should cancel the elections. And of course, it is assumed that the they he is referring to is the Democrats, because that's who he was talking about in the previous part of the sentence. However, why would the Democrats do it? So that statement wouldn't make sense unless he's not talking about Democrats and is instead talking about the Republicans in the room should cancel the elections. The president of the United States has no authority at all over elections in the United States. That is one of the good parts of the separation of powers. Trump has no authority at all. Congress does. Congress sets election dates. So if Trump is in fact trying to get Republicans in Congress to somehow push the date into the future or just cancel the date and leave it open-ended and say, we'll just do it whenever the hell we feel like it, if we ever feel like it, that seems with the way that Donald Trump phrased that. This is, of course, not the first time that this mentally disturbed president has suggested canceling elections. Several months ago, when he was meeting with Zelensky in the White House, he discussed the fact that, hey, you guys canceled your elections because of the war. I like that. That's a good idea. Back in 2020, during the pandemic, when Trump was up for re-election, He openly suggested canceling the elections, because of COVID, which was totally not real, but also so real we couldn't go vote. So this has become something that he has repeated multiple times over multiple years. And based on the fact that, he talked about going into Venezuela for months and months and then finally did it, we can no longer assume, we cannot give him the benefit of the doubt that he's joking about any of these things. I mean, Greenland, hell, the talk about Greenland has escalated exponentially in the last 5 days to the point where the administration says, yeah, we're working on a negotiation to buy it, which is not true because obviously Europe stood up yesterday and was like, you're not coming over here at all, buddy. But Trump is still pushing for that. So all of these things he says, we now have to assume these are things he wants to act on, things that he wants done. And if he can't do it himself, then they should be taken as orders to the other people who do in fact have the ability to, in some ways, do these kinds of things. And that's what I'm taking it as. Trump wants the elections canceled. He said it. He knows he can't do it. He knows Congress might be able to do it. And that's what he is signaling to them. So the big question is why? I mean, obviously, Democrats, based on current polling, things can change, obviously, but right now, Democrats are poised to make massive gains in the midterms. So Democrats would take over. And that's what scares Trump, because Trump then said this: I wish you could explain to me what the hell is going on with the mind of the public, because we have the right policy. You got to win the midterms, because if we don't win the midterms, they'll find a reason to impeach me. I'll get impeached. Don't threaten us with a good time. That's kind of what we're hoping for. We know you're not going to get removed from office, but hell, having a guy sitting in the Oval Office who's been impeached 3 times, that'd be pretty fun. So I do think that is what is driving this. Trump doesn't want to be the only guy to get impeached 3 times. So he is pushing for the cancellation of the midterms. It terrifies him. He's worried about being a lame duck for these last 2 years. He wants to be able to accomplish the rest of Project 2025, but he knows he's not going to be able to do that should Republicans lose, which again, based on all the available data right now, it does look like that's going to happen. Now, he says they'll find a reason to impeach me. I mean, honestly, at this point, it's more difficult to find a reason not to impeach you. You overthrew a foreign government based on lies. You did not get congressional approval for it. You've committed the war crimes of going out there and ordering the bombings of these boats in the Caribbean and, of course, in the Pacific. There's blatant abuse of power with your weaponizing the DOJ to actually go after your political enemies. You put the post on Truth Social telling Pam Bondi to do this. She immediately started indicting these people, which all fell apart, went to straight to hell. You have illegally denied funding to states that was congressionally allocated, as well as to other institutions. Take a pick, buddy. There's many, many, many different things you could be impeached for. And in fact, Democrats, I say you do different articles of impeachment for each and every one. Why impeach him a 3rd time when you can impeach him a 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th time too? May as well just run the whole gamut there and get him once for everything. That would be absolutely hilarious, and I would love to see it happen. And honestly, I think y'all could make it happen. I really think you could. Super chat from V-Man came through here. Says Farron Axios is reporting that Alaska Democrat Mary Petola is to run for U.S. Senate. How big is it to have her running for Senate in 2026, and how does it change the Senate map for the Democratic Party? That is a very difficult question. Also, a little off topic, and I'm trying to keep onto these topics here, please, folks. But I will say that one of the reports that came out said that this race now does, in fact, with Petola jumping in, changes it from likely Republican to toss-up. So this is a big deal. This could dramatically change the makeup of the Senate. This could dramatically change the makeup of the Senate. So this is a good thing. Patola is, of course, popular in Alaska. The reporting so far out this morning seems to think that she has a very real shot of taking that seat. So I do think that this is a game changer, hopefully for the Democrats. But, again, now that this is happening and it is still very fresh, it's a little difficult to kind of gauge where the public in Alaska sits on it. So hopefully in a couple days, I do think we're going to see some polling coming out, and hopefully that goes Patola's way. A couple other super chats here. Says, is relying on U.S. government wise for allies and voters? Absolutely not. The U.S. government is unreliable at this point. Our allies are coming out and telling us, no, we don't trust you. We're not going to share intelligence with you. And they've lied to the voters here at home so many times over the last, year here that no, there's nothing they can say that we should believe. Here's one, again, a little off topic, but thank you for the super chat. Is kids own a PS5 or Xbox and you play with them? They have both. My older son has the PS5. Play with them. They have both. My older son has the PS5. My younger son has the Xbox. And no, I don't play any of those. I occasionally do play the Nintendo Switch, mostly Smash Brothers. I get on there and just kind of kill time, but that's about it. Let's move on, though, folks. Like I said, I got a ton of stories for today, and I really want to get through all of this because I think it is all very important. Yesterday, during Trump's rant to Republicans at their retreat, he did more than just threaten to cancel U.S. elections. He also went into a very weird stream of consciousness where he touched on so many different unrelated issues that it was almost impossible to keep track. But the President of the United States did, in fact, prove, I think, my opinion, that he is definitely way worse mentally than I think most of us had previously thought. So I'm going to go through this list here of some of the weirdest things that Trump did during that speech yesterday. First one is he imitated the sounds that the auto pen makes, because God knows every American can't sleep at night thinking about how horrible the auto pen is, something that honestly a year ago most people didn't even know existed. But here is what Trump said about the auto pen while attacking President Biden, who of course is just a private citizen at this point. But here's what Trump said. And by the way, you ought to make a big deal out of the auto pen. The auto pen was your precedent because most of the things were signed by auto pen and you're not allowed to do that. I signed very little. You got to sign it. You can't give it to an auto pen. And you can always tell an auto pen one thing, it has two tiny dots. You know that? Two little dots. Do you know what that's from? Two pins. They go bing, pow, bing, pow. They're wonderful things. This is dementia. Bing, pow, bing, pow. They're wonderful things. This is dementia. This is an individual who learned something recently, and they're not able to recall things that they have known for many years. But they can recall in some instances, depending on how advanced the disease is, they can recall things that they just learned if it stimulates them enough. This little fact that Trump learned about the two pins, he remembers it. And so he's telling this story like, hey, let's get two pins. Did you know that? I didn't know they're two little pins. Just bing, bing, bang, pow, ping, poo, pa, choo, pa. And that's the story he tells. And he's telling these members of Congress that are terrified of getting their asses kicked in the midterm. He's like, y'all going to make a big deal about the auto pen. Nobody In the United States of America, regardless of political affiliation, I can promise you not one single person is going to go to the polls in November and say, well, my biggest issue is the auto pen. I know I can't afford my medications and I haven't eaten in 3 weeks because food is astronomical and I lost my job 2 years ago, but the auto pen is my biggest concern. That's not gonna happen. But this demented geezer is literally telling these Republicans, you got to make it all about the auto pen. Please do. I genuinely, please do. I want this entire campaign for Republicans. I want y'all to run every ad talking about that auto pen, and let's see how that plays out for you in November. I wish that were the end of it. I really genuinely wish I didn't have more crazy, stupid things that Trump said, but I do. He also did an impression of his wife, the First Lady of the United States. He went on a tangent, even worse than the auto pen, where he started talking about his dancing, right? He said his wife, who is a very classy lady, tangent, even worse than the auto pen, where he started talking about his dancing, right? He said his wife, who is a very classy lady, hates it. Here's what Trump said. She's a very classy person, right? She said it's so unpresidential. She hates when I dance. I said, everybody wants me to dance. Darling, it's not presidential, she actually said. Could you imagine FDR dancing? I think for obvious reasons, most of us cannot obviously imagine FDR dancing, you dumbass. I'm also going to have to take issue with the fact that Donald Trump called his wife a very classy person. I think what he meant was very trashy person. There is nothing classy about Melania Trump. She has a lot of money, sure, because she married money. But money is not class. Money is money. Money is I can buy things that other people can't, sure. But that in no way makes you better than anybody else, and it sure as hell doesn't make you classier than anybody else. But she is right about his dancing is stupid and unpresidential. But it is what it is. It's one of the only things he has that I think endears him to some people. So he's going to keep doing it until, of course, he does one of these. And, then we never have to see him dancing again. And then, there's always an and then. Then he goes on about one of the reporters in the room, a man by the name of Doug Mills from the New York Times. He actually won the Pulitzer Prize last year for he's the one who got the photograph of Butler, Pennsylvania, when the bullet came near Trump's ear. So Trump sees him out there in the crowd, and he says this. Pulitzer Prize, Pulitzer Prize. He got one for the bullet. He had the bullet, but he got how many Pulitzer Prizes? 3 Pulitzer Prizes. Make me look thin for a change, Doug. You are making me look a little heavy. I'm not happy about it. Yeah, it's Doug's fault you're fat. Doug is the one making us think that you're heavier than you are, Donald. You nailed it. That's what it is. Because he's actually a super thin. Nailed it. That's what it is. Because he's actually a super thin guy. But Doug, Pulitzer Prize winner Doug, is out there taking such bad photos that now we think he's fat. I think you're blaming Doug for things that Doug has no control over, Donald. I would assume it's your nonstop diet of fast food multiple times a day. And then, this is the last one. I could go on, but I'm only going to do one more. He talked about how good looking the troops were in the room. Bunch of men standing in the back there in uniform, and man, he could barely contain himself. Trump said this. You're living in one of the safest cities in the country. Great thing. You can walk to the restaurants. Restaurants were all booming. New restaurants, they were all closing. You wouldn't have had a restaurant. And okay, you know what? I'm going to stop right there because that's just a weird nonsensical statement that, of course, has no basis in reality. The businesses were not closing. They actually started to have to close their doors once the National Guard came in and started occupying DC, because nobody wanted to go out anymore because it was a police state. So that's what happened there. But he continues, says, and I don't know about you, but to me, those soldiers standing there look so good. To each their own, buddy. I'm not here to judge you for that, but you're always kind of talking about how good looking all these other guys are, while, restricting the rights of the LGBTQ community because you guys say that they're forcing their lifestyle upon you. So I'm just going to say I find that a little bit hypocritical for him to keep doing that. I'm going to move on. But first, I think a lot of super chats came through, and I do want to make sure we get to all of these. So let me scroll way. Oh, I can't even go all the way back to the top of the comments here. But here's one. It says, how many new leaders do you think it will take to get America's reputation back to at least close to where it was before? I don't know that it's a matter of the number of people. It's the type of people. George W. Bush destroyed the United States standing with the rest of the world horrifically. At the same level, by the way, that Donald Trump really has. Obama came along, and it took a little bit of time, but it did not take as much time as we all thought it would. So that was a tremendous turnaround by a transformational leader. Because America, obviously, he was the first African-American president. So that signaled a major change within the country itself. And the rest of the world saw that part too. And they were like, okay, I think the whole place has changed. So it wasn't just what Obama did. It was Obama himself as a person and what that meant from the public. So I think that's what it was. $2 Garage Super Chat says, times like this really remind me that I should have stayed in Portugal and just not come home. I do hate to see that. I'm not saying, oh, no, it's great here. You should totally be happy to be here. It's sad to have those thoughts. And honestly, I've had thoughts that, maybe it's time to skedaddle. Even if not out of the United States, out of this deep red area of the deep red state that I live in, I have repeatedly thought, I actually talked to my wife this morning about it, how I'm ready to get out of here. A super chat here says, will most celebrate when Trump's team passes? Yeah, they will, until a crazy right-winger goes out there and tries to do something to the people that are celebrating. Both of those things I do firmly believe, based on the history of this country in the last few years, I think both of those things will happen, unfortunately. There's something deeply wrong with Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly, of course, was recently in the news, just, a month or so ago, for trying to argue that young teenage girls, well below the age of 18, 14, 15, were not children. And therefore, it wasn't okay to call all of these Epstein folks, the Epstein's friends who did all the horrible stuff with the young girls. It wasn't fair to call them the P word, P files. Because, 14, 15-year-old girls, that's apparently fair game in the mind of Megyn Kelly. And again, that was a couple weeks ago, a couple months, whatever. But Megyn Kelly decided to remind everybody once again that she existed, and she is just as dumb as ever. So yesterday, or Tuesday, anniversary of the Capitol riot, January 6th, Megyn Kelly responded to a post that Hillary Clinton had put on Twitter. So Hillary Clinton gets on Twitter and says this: 5 years ago today, Donald Trump urged his supporters to attack Congress and the Capitol over a proven lie. More than 140 police officers were injured. Trump then pardoned the attackers. He betrayed his oath and his country, and we won't ever forget it, Hillary Clinton said. Now, this was then reposted by the Trump War Room Twitter account, which said it's false. Hillary Clinton's a coward. Turn on your replies. And then Megyn Kelly responded to that and said, Trump should sue her for this. It's patently untrue. Urged his supporters to attack Congress. The BBC is currently getting sued by Trump for basically the same lie. It's not impossible, but it is unlikely that a defamation or libel lawsuit in this instance against somebody for something they put on Twitter, which is where you're allowed to give your opinion, would be successful on such a massive scale. Especially, Megyn, given the fact that we're getting all kinds of stuff from that Jack Smith testimony that kind of backs up what Hillary Clinton said. I mean, Jack Smith did say, no Trump, no Capitol riot. Trump did go out there on that Stop the Steal rally that day and told people, quote, fight like hell or you won't have a country anymore. And then what did they do? They turned around, went into the Capitol, and fought like hell. So Trump may not have specifically said, go to the Capitol and do these things, but you're not going to be able to prove actual malice in a lawsuit like this. More importantly, Megyn, let it go. Like, why does Megyn Kelly feel the need to stick herself in the middle of everything? And what's hilarious about her sticking herself in everything is that she always does the wrong thing. Like the Epstein stuff. All she had to do was just either, go after Trump for it, but we know she's not. So the other option would have been to say nothing. Nothing. Just say nothing. Pretend it's a topic you don't want to talk about and just move on with your life. But instead, she goes out there, makes an ass of herself, trying to argue that a 14 or 13-year-old girl is actually a woman who's capable of having sex with older men. This situation, obviously not quite as extreme, but equally as stupid. Because Megyn Kelly did this, one, because she's an idiot, but two, because she wants to hype up Hillary Clinton again so that Republicans have an easy punching bag, because God knows they love to talk about Hillary Clinton when all of us on the left have been more than happy to not even think about her for 10 years now. But that's what Kelly did. That's who Kelly is. And she thought this was a smart idea. Turned out just made her look even dumber than she actually is. So let's move on now from one bleach blonde Trump supporter to another. Pam Bondi has screwed up this prosecution of Nicolas Maduro, the ousted leader of Venezuela, so badly that I firmly believe this case is going to be dismissed in the very near future. The DOJ was forced to go into court this week and walk back the charges against Maduro. Because the overarching charge, the indictment that was handed down by Trump's DOJ all the way back in 2020, which is what they arrested him on, claims that Maduro was the head of the notorious drug cartel, Cartel de la Sol. There's just one problem. That cartel doesn't exist. It's not real. It's fake. It is, in fact, a colloquial term in Venezuela to describe the federal government under Maduro. But it's not an actual drug cartel. Cartel de las Solas, what it is it means the cartel of the sun. And the sun is a reference to the sons that the admirals and military leaders in Venezuela wear on their uniforms, much the same way that American generals wear stars. They have suns, we have stars, kind of same thing, but that's why they call it that. It's not an official drug cartel. It's basically a mocking term used by Venezuelans to refer to their government. But the indictment, the original indictment from 2020, the indictment from Pam Bondi, all said like, nope, this is a real cartel. And Nicolas Maduro was the guy running it from the seat of power in Caracas. We got him. Marco Rubio came out last summer. It was in July, I think, where he's like, the Cartel de las Solas is absolutely one of the biggest drug cartels on the planet, and the Maduro's running it, and we gotta do something about it. But it was never a real thing. And I do love the fact that Marco Rubio is living up to the reputation that I bestowed upon him as the dumbest member of the U.S. Senate, and he's still just as dumb as he ever was. This administration is so incompetent, so dumb. They don't know the difference between colloquial terms and phrases versus real, actual things. So they're trying to claim that Maduro is the leader of a group that doesn't exist, and that was the basis of their invasion. That's the basis of their indictment. All of this whole thing like fell apart already. Honestly, I'm kind of shocked that the judge overseeing it hasn't already thrown it out. Look, I don't want Maduro to go back and be the leader and keep doing the horrible things he was doing. He's a bad guy. And he should be in jail, but he should be in jail the proper way. This administration can't do it. They're going to botch it so badly that they're going to end up actually creating sympathy for Maduro and more hatred towards them. That's what's going to happen. But I do love to see Pam Bondi's incompetence. Like that's one of the bright spots of this administration. That has been one of the consistently most funny aspects of Donald Trump being back in power, is just how incompetent Pam Bondi is. A super chat here from Scorpio ZA says, getting the cartel name wrong is up there with the MS-13 Photoshop incident. Yes, let's not forget that happened. But that's what this administration does. To justify any of their absolutely stupid and horrific things, we'll just make it up. We'll just make it up and hope that nobody on the planet notices. And every time, everybody notices what they've done. There's nothing funny about what this administration has done. Let's be clear. But it is absolutely hilarious to see the new and different ways that they continue to fail. That's going to do it for today, folks. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you, everyone, with the super chats. I do want to say, if you're not subscribed, please go ahead and do so. One more super chat here. Let me address this. It says, in Europe, people fought against dictators like, God, I cannot even pronounce that name, and installed a democracy. If so many people are against this government, why don't you fight them? Donald J. Trump is starting World War III. Please stop him. That's a good question I don't have an answer to. Why are people not standing up to stop him? And I think the difference, of course, is that people are. We do have the protests. We do have, the people getting the accurate information out there. But I think if you're referring to why are people not, taking up arms and trying to oust him, it's because we cannot physically fight the might of the United States military. No matter how many guns, all these people have to protect themselves from the tyrannical government, they can literally send out one single drone and take every single one of us out without us even seeing that the drone is there. So I think that is probably why you're not seeing people actively trying to overthrow the government here. But again, somebody told me how to pronounce the name. It just came through. Where did it go? Ceausescu. Okay, Ceausescu. Thank you very much for that. I've learned something. Anyway, look, got a lot of great content coming up for you throughout the rest of the day. We'll be back again live again tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Central My Time. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate everybody tuning in. I love the great comments and all of the super chats here. So thank you, and I will talk to you again tomorrow morning.